Hey, my lovely people. Welcome back to A Black Cat's Voice. I'm your host, Kat, here with a brand new topic to discuss with you guys. And today's topic is controversial, and there are a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of misconceptions when it comes to what I'm going to talk about. So listen with an open mind and open heart. And please understand that I am a person who is both book smart and street smart. So I'm never going to talk about anything that I don't know from experience, from studying, or from true education on the topic. So today's episode, I decided to call it On C.R.I.P, but it's actually, just about gang culture itself. And I just really want to give some of the history behind it, some of the real intentions behind its creation, and really explain the development to how it has become what it is now. And I called it On C.R.I.P because I don't know if y'all really know gangbangers or whatnot in real life, but that's one of the things that they say, on C.R.I.P. That's, the people who wear blue at certain times. I don't want to get too specific here because I don't want to, call anything out that might become a problem later. So to be clear, I'm not from a gang. I've never been put on nobody's hood. I never wanted to be put on anybody's hood. Never wanted to be a part of a gang. I'm just speaking on what I know from not only studying, but life experience myself. So the main point I want to make is that before it became commercialized, being a gang member was actually a good thing. So the original meaning of C.R.I.P, which some of you may not know, is not, let's be out here shooting and killing each other. No. The original meaning of C.R.I.P is community revolution in progress. So the original gangs were never meant to harm anyone unless it was for protection. So most gangs really have a history of helping their communities from the beginning. So a lot of the gangs are really just groups that, people intended to be like a family for those who may not have family or who may have lost family members or whatever the case may be. It was really more for community, for helping each other. And especially as Black people, gangs were really used to protect our people, not just from enemies, from outsiders, but also from the police. Before the police was called the police, the feds, the cops, whatever you want to call it, it was called the slave patrol. So do your own research on that. But a lot of gangs were originally created to protect us, as Black people. And, even to this day, there are a decent amount of people who join gangs not to look tough, not to seem like this or that, but to really have that sense of family, because joining a gang can provide to a person who comes from struggle, who may not have opportunities. It provides a sense of family. It provides people who will look out for you, people who will feed you, people who will give you a place to stay, and people who will give you opportunities to make money. And now I'm not sitting here saying that, everything they do within gangs is right or nothing like that. I'm literally just giving you the history because this is where all of that came from. There's a lot of history behind gangs, especially being a C.R.I.P in general. There's a lot of unknown history behind that. Okay, so one thing about gang culture is that almost everything that has become popularized and commercialized is not really originating from what they show you. A lot of people are not like out here. Well, at this day and age, it's something completely different. But originally, a lot of it was not out here to, make anybody feel, like they're in danger or threatened or nothing like that. Gangs were really more to show, like, this is our family. And y'all know how it is, y'all that have, big supportive families, y'all not out there messing with people, but if people bring the issue, you want all the smoke. Like, that's basically the same as what gangs were invented for. It wasn't, let's just start, messing with everybody and hurting people. It was just like, let's prevent people from hurting us, and let's prevent people from thinking they can do whatever they want to us, because they can't, So a lot of the things that they show you to make it seem like, this means a person is this kind of way, and they think this is that. That's not even where that came from. Like, the reason I keep speaking on C.R.I.P and C.R.I.P specifically is because that is the group that I specifically know the most about. And I don't want to sit here and be like, the Bloods do this because of this, that, because I'm not as educated on that group. But one thing I am sure of is that these millions or however many gangs they have at this point, they all started from, these same groups, which are all just different branches on the same tree. It wasn't for, let's show you how we're gonna hurt you. It was, let's form a family within each other, and we don't have to come from the same family to love each other and protect each other and help each other. You could be on the same vibe with people regardless, just because y'all are on the same vibe. So a perfect example of something that is very misconstrued this day and age is crip walking. A lot of people don't know that crip walking originated as tribal dancing. As Aboriginal people, a lot of us Black people, we dance to communicate our energy with each other. In church, you will see them doing, a specific step to show praise to the Most High, to do those, different just movements to express that energy. Within our families, within our genetics, we dance to celebrate. We dance because we're expressive people. So I remember from a small child, seeing my dad and just different people in my family do the same dance that people now call crip walking and all this other stuff. And I don't remember my dad throwing up his hood or, out there with a blue rag and all. My dad wasn't doing none of that, but it's literally the exact same dance because it's part of our culture. And they have taken things like that and, really turned it into something else. Like, honestly, just because that's how we used to dance in my family, I always danced like that. And I remember going to school and people thinking like, especially because I was the only Black girl, people thinking, we didn't know you were from a gang, or, we didn't know this, that. And I'm literally like, I didn't even know what they were talking about because I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like, I'm just dancing. This is how we dance in my family. Like, what are you talking about? And then come to find out, that's, I guess that's what crip walking is. So, I'm just explaining that to say that a lot of things are not what they appear to be. Just because something seems like one thing, that doesn't mean that's what it is, nor does that mean that that's the purpose of it. So let me be clear. A lot of the gangs and the gang culture that you see today, that's not what I'm talking about. A lot of these things are environmental products who just became headed on a path of destruction because that's the only thing that they think it's for. They've completely warped and transformed even the perception of what a gang is to where people really think that in order to be a, thug, quote unquote, or gangster or whatever, you have to live your life a certain way. And the reason behind all of this being set up the way that it is because the people in power really realized that the gangs were becoming a problem and that they needed to become infiltrated. So it's really kind of like in a way, it's kind of like control opposition. The people in power, they need someone to be lower than them. The higher class needs a middle and a lower class, because you're not going to have all the CEOs, serving you food at the drive-thru. It doesn't work like that. And for society to work the way that it is now, they needed certain things to happen. And a lot of tools were put in place to make things this way. You had a lot of people who are from the hood or who have lived in the hood can really tell you stories of, them getting, profiled by the police, or people getting arrested. And you can literally Google or YouTube so many instances of people doing hard time or having really years of their life taken away for crimes that either they didn't commit or they were prosecuted for without evidence. And all of this together is why the world is the way that it is today. People aren't looking at a gang or joining a gang as, oh, I'm gonna have a family, I'm gonna have people to look out for me, I'm gonna have the things that I need. People look at it as okay, I'm gonna be out here selling drugs and killing people. And it's just, it's really sad, because things are really not what they appear to be. But there were a lot of tools and people put into place to make these things happen. They didn't just wake up one day and be like, all right, anybody who's a gang member, you're this now. No, it was a lot of tools put into place. And you still have certain people who may have been from a gang or part of the gang, but are still very much family oriented and wanting to take care of people, take care of not just their people, their family, but any others who might be in their position. That's why you had people like Nipsey Hussle. You had people like Ice Cube. Even Ice Cube even said in one of his songs, it don't matter if you rich if your folks ain't straight. And that's real. What does it matter how much money and everything you have if the people that you love are still suffering around you? And that's the difference in how they changed, gang culture into thug life. So Tupac was a big character when it came to the whole thug life, mentality. Dr. Dre as well. A lot of you might not even know Dr. Dre, before he was West Coast, Inglewood, always up to no good, whatever. He was in a R&B / pop band called World Class Wrecking Crew. You can look it up for yourself, So it's pretty interesting that you go from making beats and stuff like that and being part of a pop band to now you're telling people, to do and maneuver in certain ways. And it's just very interesting, because a lot of the things that these celebrities tell you to do or preach that they're doing, they don't live that way. They're not about that life. They just want you to think that, And it's really sad, because these people will lead you down a path of destruction. Whole time, they're watching you go down that bridge that leads nowhere, and they're driving off the complete opposite way, because they already know that path that you're going leads nowhere. You feel me? Tupac was also a big piece of this whole, puzzle as to gang culture becoming thug life. Y'all know his acronym for thug life: the hate you give little infants fucks everybody. And that's real. What you teach our children, the way that people are hated coming up, what they learn is important or unimportant, that's who they become. And how you treat our babies is what ruins society as a whole. And it's just very interesting, because Tupac is considered to be this legend and whatnot. And I'm not saying he's not, but if you just really look at it, it just didn't make sense. He'll tell you in a song, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. But at the same time, he's out here calling women bitches and talking about, oh, that's why I fucked your bitch, you fat mother. So it's just really, it was just really contradictory. Is a woman a queen or is she a bitch? You feel me? And even the whole West Coast rivalry, the whole East Coast, whatever, it really didn't make sense, because A lot of y'all might not know that Tupac wasn't even from here. He wasn't born in California. Tupac literally moved to California when he was 17 years old. And he passed away, in his early 20s? How old was he? Maybe 25, I believe. So how can you be so, about a place that you didn't even grow up? Like, you're not even from here. I'm not saying you can't rep your city or nothing like that, but I'm just saying it just goes to show that, they wanted everything to look a certain way. So when you need your story to go a certain way, you have to use certain characters to make it seem like that. What did we really like? What did we really gain from that? What did we really gain from the whole, NWA, the 90s hip hop? Like, what did we gain from, wanting all this destruction and wanting to prove how tough we are? It just really takes away from the real reality of what's going on. And it's that each and every person, I don't care, you black, white, Latino, whatever you may be, we are stronger together. You have a much better chance of survival looking out for somebody next to you, and you teaching them what you know, them teaching you what they know. You have a much better chance at survival versus if you're just going against and fighting one another. And that's why it's all a damn mess now, honestly. There is no sense of family. There is no sense of, That's why even some people are ashamed to say they come from the hood, because they know that perception is very, it's very negative. And it's really sad because everybody is so divided for reasons that really should not exist. If you're black, if you're not black, whatever the case may be, we're all people at the end of the day. Everybody has a struggle. Everybody has something that they might be working on mentally, physically, or emotionally that they could use some assistance with. And the more that we're going against each other, worried about, oh, you're from here, I'm from here, I'm this, you're that. The more we're going against each other, it's like the further we're getting away from where we should really be. You feel me? Like, we're all stronger together. And that's just really why, a lot of things are the way that they are. Because the original purpose of gangs, it wasn't to show, oh, I'm from here and you're from over there. The original purpose was like, hey, if you don't have a family, if you don't have somebody to protect you, I got you. Just because you didn't come from my family, or just because I may not, I may not have known you for a long time, it doesn't mean I can't love you as if you were my family. And that's really how everything got ruined, long story short. So I'm not saying join a gang. I'm not saying trust people who are gang members, you feel me? You should really judge each person based off who they are and the role they play in your life. But I just really want you guys to understand that not everything is what it seems. Okay? On C.R.I.P. As always, I just want to end this episode by saying thank you for listening.